Hello, everybody, again. This is Chris and Johnny with you for your fifth lesson. Just thanks for being here again. And Johnny, how do you feel?
Feel good. Good to be with you all.
It's the second time that we're together, so it's
Correct.
already a little more relaxed, even though we still don't have air conditioning. And but it's still a very important topic. Today we're talking about the choice in the environment. Maybe we've talked about that before, maybe we've mentioned it before, but here basically we're talking about our free choice. What is our free choice? But less about free choice and more about why the environment is so important and why the environment is kind of the springboard to get us into spirituality.
Yeah, this is a very important topic. As we go along in the studies, we realize that the point of the environment is key a key ingredient for understanding about where we want to go with the wisdom of Kabbalah and feeling about what we want to achieve here. So, no further ado, please. Chris.
Please, Hezi, to the first clip. We're just going to start it off with the clip first, and I think it's always a good, it kind of sets the serious tone for the lesson. So if we could go to the net clip, Hezi.
About 2 years ago, the world was in a financial crisis. Today, the world is in a political crisis. It seems like the whole world has the same time. Everyone enters into a certain period. It's like everyone is like, it's not a matter of like the internet or something. It's like all of a sudden you see people that are not even connected to the internet, or people that don't even have a phone, all of a sudden have the same kind of thoughts about the replacing of the governance, or how does it happen in such a way that it happens all over the world at the same time? We are in a net of forces. We are like a certain little marbles, little balls that are thrown upon a net. And this net connects us between us and within it. And this is for sure that we exist this way. So whether we like or not, our thoughts, our desires, our actions, we are in mutual bestowal to each other. We cascade to one place or another from that same program that's in the net. Who are we? We are operated. We are not good. And therefore you shouldn't look at this world in an external manner that we are doing in such a way something. We built some network of phones, that's why the world is operating like that, and beforehand it wasn't connected. That network of phones that we built now just says that we are now ready and we're operated in that network. Now we have the internet network, and it means that we have come to our egoistic desire, which is being revealed in us in greater responses now, but we are being operated from this net. It's not that we are now building. We built the internet, and now because of the internet we're connected. That's nonsense. But rather, you can build whatever you want. It won't connect between you in any way. That's just a copy, it's like a sign that within you are connected to each other, and now you are as part of the connection that you have, which is total and 100% integral, is revealed for you in a certain measure, in that 5%, let's say, that you're connected between you. That's it.
So that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about last time we kind of talked about a little bit about how everything's a system, and we're interconnected in a certain way that we just simply have to act according to those laws. Here, we're kind of opening up the topic a little bit about what is the environment, how does it influence me exactly? We just heard from a clip from one of the morning lessons that it's not that we can build some external network or, I don't know, spider web kind of some things we like to similarize some things to some kinds of nets, that here we have this problem, and if something over here changes, you can kind of see how it ripples into other problems around the world. So we see that everything's kind of a little bit interconnected, but we don't feel that it's that way. I don't feel that I really depend on this web and this interconnection of different relations between one object and another, one person and another, one field of industry and another, one environmental disaster and another. All these things, everything is interconnected. We are part of that environment. And this time we want to take a little slice of that external world, and we want to delve into the environment that we study in Kabbalah, which is, you'll hear it as like sviva. In Hebrew, you hear that word over and over and over. A good sviva, sviva tova, also is one of our websites. Why is it so important? It's important because there we receive all of the changes that we want to undergo that will direct us towards spirituality. Last time we talked about how love your neighbor as yourself, or from love of others you come to love of the Creator. We talked about how this relationship between the two, they have to exist for you to really advance in spirituality, to build something spiritual for yourself, to live in a different existence. And so now we want to talk about why is it that way? Why is it so important? Kind of what are the mechanics a little bit? And the more that we delve into that and we see how, okay, so if I am something that from the beginning is completely opposite from the thing that I actually want, how could it be possible? How could it be possible that I will want something that I am completely against? I will never want it. That's the thing. And so the way that I acquire this small desire of wanting it is from an environment that feeds me those values. The environment must supply me with the need for the thing that society has. So we'll talk a little bit more about these wants and needs and how environment influences me. And you'll probably be testing it on yourself. How do I react in certain situations? And you'll see, really, truly, it is like that. We have a lot of reading today.
Right.
And it's very important to stick with the sources, because when we read something like from Bala Sulam, we don't want to start. There's kind of this tendency to critique the writing and say, I could have said it a little bit differently, I could have said it a little bit better. Or if you don't understand it, you try to kind of try to change the words a little bit to help you understand it and to try to help you get a grasp on it. When we read these texts, it's very important, and we'll talk about this over and over again, it's very important to take it for face value, because when you read the text, you're reading from the attainment of a Kabbalist who gave it to you exactly the way it's laid out in the system. And to just receive it and completely erase any of your opinions that you have about it, any kind of philosophies that you want to do, and just take it and just say, this is really something that I want to be influenced by. I don't want to be against it, I want it to influence me. So we can already start practicing that. So when we read this, we have a lot of text, just try it, and we'll go slow, and we'll stop in the middle a little bit and kind of chop it down and break it down. In the meantime, please send your questions. If you have questions, that way I can kind of figure out how we need to direct it, and Johnny is going to add his flavors and his taste to it, and we're going to take some good questions. But basically, that's what we're going to do. We're going to have some reading, and we're going to break it down. We're going to understand why is the environment so important. So, Johnny, if you want to go ahead and read,
Yep.
Guys, we're reading from, I think everything's from Kabbalah for the students. So if you have your book, please. This one is Kabbalah for the student, page 375. It's the Freedom article. And Johnny, he's not going to open the book because we have it printed off here. So let's just see what he has to say.
Just one or two words further to what Chris said.
Mm-hmm.
The texts of Kabbalists are very, very significant. They wrote these words from a spiritual attainment. So they wrote it from a point of feeling and sensing something above the body, spirituality. So we encourage, both of us encourage you, that try and connect with the words of what they're saying. They're all talking about inner states that a person goes through. They're all talking about the connection between us. And so try to feel as much within yourself as we're going through the text. And think about how we can bond, how we can connect with each other and feel each other as essentially one soul, as one body. So yeah, on that note, I'll start. Yeah,
That's a great point. Just to reemphasize that, we're talking kind of like the anatomy of the soul. You know, you study kind of the soul, meaning you study the connections between us, right? You study that, and from that you have observations and you have understandings and discernments from that. And here we're just writing about something that we have no idea about. Because we don't see this network of connections between us. We don't see how the environment really does influences in ways that are very hidden and very mysterious. We don't see that, so we're taking the advice from someone who does.
Okay, great. Okay, the topic is a person's choice is in the environment which develops his inner attributes. These words need to be clarified because how is the matter of reception of the Torah related to one's liberation from death?
And when we hear words like death or angel of death, we're talking about submission into the ego, basically living your life in this will to receive without any hope for true life. Which means when he mentions life here, he's talking about light inside of a vessel. This action, this sensation that a person feels when light enters the vessel, when light stimulates the vessel, meaning my desire. That's what I call life. That's when I start living life. Right now, it's said that we were living as dreamers in this state that's called our world. We don't have any sensation of the upper world, which is true life. So here, it's called death.
Okay. Furthermore, once they have attained an eternal body that cannot die through the reception of the Torah, how do they lose it again? Can the eternal become absent? Freedom of will. To understand the sublime concept, freedom from the angel of death.
Again, we're talking about the will to receive.
We must first understand the concept of freedom as it is normally understood by all of humanity.
Meaning, we're about to define differently the definition of freedom. We understand freedom as opposed to slavery. So now we want to add a spiritual definition to that, because each time that we hear words in Kabbalistic text about using words from our world, we automatically have a specific connotation to them, and it's 100% not the correct definition as pertaining to spirituality. So we're just redefining. This is what the first semester kind of is about. It's actually what your first few years of studying Kabbalah is about: unlearning and relearning new definitions and changing the first. You have those papers with a picture on them, and you say, what do you think when you see this? And you say, I see a cat, or it reminds me of this. Here, whenever we hear freedom, and when we hear death, when we hear evil, angel, we want to automatically start trying to add the spiritual definition to those, and not this thing with wings or something like that, right?
Okay.
Let's get down to the part where he talks about. Let's get through this first paragraph here.
It is a general view that freedom is deemed a natural law, which applies to all of life. Thus, we see that animals that fall in captivity die when we rob them of their freedom. This is a true testimony that providence does not accept the enslavement of any creature. It is with good reason that humanity has been struggling for the past several hundred years to obtain a certain measure of freedom of the individual.
Meaning we have this inner root of freedom that a person aspires for. In the beginning, it's freedom that he thinks that he needs to escape some ruler or some ruling or some. He's just enslaved, and there's this constant. It's my parents won't let me leave my house to go visit my girlfriend, and I feel I don't have the freedom, and it's very important to give babies, as a mother, as a father, not to block the doorway, when they're trying to leave, or cover their mouth, or any kind of things where they don't have control. You need to let them express themselves. So this is kind of like this baby that's developing, meaning humanity. It's developing under all these new kind of definitions of freedom, and now what do we want? We want freedom of speech. We want, we don't close the internet because, it's connecting us. We want to share this information. So we're closer and more. So we're gradually getting closer to the true definition of freedom, which is what Balasam's talking about. So read the next paragraph here. Oh, sorry.
So
if you want to add something, please.
Just briefly, what Chris is saying is that it's a very important concept that when we study the wisdom of Kabbalah, we're actually studying the higher laws of nature. Okay, and these laws, as we know, they apply in our world in terms of the pure sense. So we're talking about how we how we should be what we are at the root, so as to speak, and as a result, how we should feel in this world. So everything comes from the spiritual world and it's acted out in this world. So it's talking about our roots, so as to speak. That's why when we talk about things that are talking about captivity, etc., they're all against our roots, so as to speak. Okay. Yet this concept, expressed in that word, freedom, remains unclear, and if we delve into the meaning of that word, there will be almost nothing left.
Meaning, you start talking about it, and eventually it's not really clear what you're talking about. You can't define it anymore. There's no real boundaries of what the word freedom is. It becomes something very abstract, meaning there's really nothing left of it.
For, before you seek the freedom of the individual, you must assume that any individual, in and of itself, has that quality called freedom, meaning that one can act according to one's own free choice.
Okay. So the root that Johnny was talking about is this inner longing to have free choice. Finally, we're starting to enter the matter. Freedom is so important because we want free choice. We can't act out free choice if we don't have freedom. So what is keeping us? How do I preface this? How do we are under the illusion that we have choice, right? So what are the two reins? You know, you have these two straps on a horse that say I want to go left, I want to go right, or pull back. We similarly have a rider, and this is also in the Zohar, the donkey rider who sits on top of the rider and kind of sits on top of the donkey, meaning the ego, and kind of directs it however it wants to go, meaning there are certain there are certain actions that can be performed on an ego, either with a stick or with a carrot, that will get it to either move forward or move backward or move and bend in every little small position. You can even see that if I'm sitting at the desk, the only reason I'm leaning forward right now is because maybe it's a little bit more comfortable to put my arm on the desk. Or, or if I want to lean back, then that's because I felt like in this position I would receive a little bit more pleasure. And maybe if I wanted to lean forward again, it's because I have a little bit of pain on my left butt cheek or something, and it hurts a little bit, so I need to relieve some of the pressure. Meaning, I am so susceptible. I am completely and 100% ruled by these two reins, pleasure and pain. I want pleasure, and I want to run away from pain. So meaning, as much pleasure as I can get with the least amount of pain. That's my calculation. So now we're entering really into something. This is something special for beginner students, because this is usually the first thing that you notice about yourself, is the first science project that you do on yourself. You start researching how you behave, and then you start seeing that basically all it is just stimulating this will to receive, meaning this thing that wants to feel pleasure. And according to this movie that the ego is watching, it reacts to the certain things that stimulate it, and you have no choice about it. If you want to change it, it's also because of another calculation that you did against pain and pleasure.
Okay.
Let's get through the pain and pleasure, and we'll let that sit, and we'll take some questions, yeah?
Okay.
Oh, no, then we have a clip, and we'll take questions.
All right.
Okay, cool.
Pleasure and pain. However, when we examine the acts of an individual, we shall find them compulsory. He is compelled to do them and has no freedom of choice. In a sense, he is like a stew cooking on a stove. It has no choice but to cook. And it must cook because Providence has harnessed life with two chains, pleasure and pain. The living creatures have no freedom of choice to choose pain or reject pleasure.
Meaning, that's very important, meaning there's no choice. Meaning, to be totally free, it's impossible with those two chains. Meaning, if I have pleasure, that makes me do something, or if I have pain, that makes me do something. It's not actually my free choice, it's just this reaction to pleasure or pain. It's not, maybe I have a certain variety on my menu that I could run to as something that seems like a choice to me. Say I have 5 things in front of me. One of them is to sleep, one of them is to do my homework, one of them is to be with the children, one of them is to wash the dishes, whatever it is. I have a choice to do any of those things. But actually the calculation is what will give me more pleasure for the least amount of pain, meaning all of those I'm going to end up doing some kind of work. So there's a little bit of pain, meaning I'm not at complete rest, because the body constantly yearns for the state of just like Ralph Lightman always depicts with the little pina colada on the beach and the waves. That's what I long for. That's what the will to receive longs for. Complete fulfillment. He doesn't need anything. If he doesn't need anything, that means he doesn't need to chase after any pleasures, because everything he has is right now and he's okay. Unfortunately, we have life that obligates us to do 1,001 different things, and that gives us the menu, meaning that I can wake up in the morning. I pretty much have to go to work if I want to eat, so that's actually not a choice either. I can kind of choose what I want to wear, but now we're starting to enter in, what I have in my closet. I already have that, and I got those things because I was influenced by the environment in another certain way, which we'll see in another clip. So just that's the direction here that we want to see. That, wait a second, I may not actually have free choice.
Okay. And man's advantage over animals is that he can aim at a remote goal, meaning to agree to a certain amount of current pain out of choice of future benefit or pleasure, to be attained after some time.
You think that's clear? We actually talked about that last time, I think. That I'm able to make a calculation with the doctor 15 years from now. I'm willing to go through school another 15 years. Why? I want to be a doctor. I'm ready to do that, and animals can't do that.
But in fact, there is no more than a seemingly commercial calculation here, where the future benefit or pleasure seems preferable and advantageous to the agony they are suffering from the pain they have agreed to assume presently.
Think about that. That's really incredible. If you start understanding the mechanics of how we are built, a person can... A soldier is even willing to die if he feels that will give his name honor, or it will protect his country, or something that he feels close to, even his platoon. He will die for them because he feels that actually brings him more pleasure than being alive and seeing the rest of them dead or something. For example, that's incredible, because. Or someone who's lifting a lot of weights and they're suffering, they're really just, their whole body is aching and they're sweating, pouring sweat off of their head, but actually they're enjoying it because they're living from that little future pleasure that in the another couple weeks I'm going to be ripped, I will be in shape, I'll feel good. They're just drinking from that future pleasure, and thus the current suffering that I feel is not actually felt as suffering. It's actually felt as a gain, as pleasure. My body is suffering, and there's a little bit of pain, but I wouldn't be able to do it if I didn't have that pleasure pushing me and motivating me. Just like I wouldn't be able to sit in school for 15 years with my head in a book, dying from exhaustion and overworking and everything. I think you get the point.
Okay. There's only a matter of deduction here. That they deduct the pain and suffering from the anticipated pleasure, and there remains some surplus. Thus, only the pleasure is extended, and so it sometimes happens that we are tormented because we did not find the attained pleasure to be the surplus we had hoped for compared to the agony we suffered. Hence, we are in a deficit, just as merchants do.
We all agree with that, right? We've all felt that before.
Sure.
I believe we understand that example. So I worked for 15 years and I never got a job as a doctor or something, for example, right? Those 15 years I suffered, and you will walk around with that deficit for the rest of your life, kind of, unless there's something that can kind of cover that deficit that's equal in pleasure, equal in reward, somehow to where my hard work paid off, or it brought me to another opportunity that maybe is completely indirect. Maybe I met someone in law school who had a daughter who ended up being the CEO of some company, and if I wouldn't have gone to, and I didn't become a doctor after going to law school, and I wouldn't have, so I met that daughter and I married her, and we got, I was the CFO of that company, but that never would have happened if I hadn't gone to medical school, say. So I didn't become a doctor, but I did receive some reward in the future that kind of said, okay, well, it is worth it. So there's constantly, Asaf said this, Asaf Oyan, he said this example one time, that there's a little bookkeeper in your head who's constantly, he's like, I kind of imagine him with like a little squeaky voice, like, it's like a little thing, like, okay, I want to sit like this, I don't want to sit like this, and he's making these calculations like that. What's more pleasurable? What's more painful? He makes that calculation immediately. It's almost, you don't think about it. You don't think about it. The little bookkeeper back here making all the calculations.
Okay. And when all is said and done, there's no difference here between man and animal. And if that is the case, there's no freedom of choice whatsoever, but a pulling force drawing them toward any bypassing pleasure and rejecting them from painful circumstances. And providence leads them to every place it chooses by means of these two forces, without asking their opinion in the matter. Balusalam Writings, The Freedom, KFS, page 375.
Kabbalah for the student.
Kabbalah for the students. Sorry.
So, if it's not clear, a person is completely operated from above through the desire to receive, and it's like his genes. There's no running away from that. So the more that you practice that on yourself, meaning that you witness yourself. Oh, can I have some?
No.
You witness yourself undergoing the stimuli of, okay, I have an option now. I have a new menu item on my plate, on my menu. I'm looking at it. I can choose to investigate it, and I see that immediately my calculation is pleasure and pain. How much is it worth? Is it worthwhile for me to make this action? And that's happening constantly. Yes.
Some questions?
Definitely. Let's feel the questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see where they're
some
at.
of them are on the topic, Chris. Some of them are a little bit off the topic. So
I prefer on topic, not on topic questions. Hopefully, we'll have like 15 minutes at the end or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll go through what seems specific to what we've just read. Nemi from South Africa. Hi, Nemi. Nice that you're here with us. He asks, what does the control of the upper force and pleasure and pain? So I think he's asking what controls the upper force in that gives us pleasure or pain.
What control, meaning, I don't understand. So how are we?
I think maybe what we have to maybe outline here is our relationship to the upper force, and what the nature of the upper force is, and what our nature is, while we receive while we act on pleasure and pain, okay, and how the upper force acts on us, the relationship between us. That the upper force is bestowal, pure giving. We desire to receive.
So it's like this still kind of splits off into pleasure and pain for us, kind of in a certain way.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, our nature is
Our
either
nature, so it receives it. We actually we have a clip that will talk exactly on that. I think it's the last clip, but basically, the question here, I think, is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that how can it be that there's this upper force that's only good, and then I feel I discern from that two things, pleasure and pain? Is that what maybe we should clarify before we answer it, because I don't want to confuse anybody if that wasn't their question, or whatever. Take one. Maybe can you resend your question? Reformat it.
Please resend the question. Maybe I didn't interpret it right.
That's okay.
Luvami Shalom from Angola. Hi, Luvami.
Hi.
She just had a recommendation for us, and we'll take it into account. Why not to include written slides in the recorded lessons?
Ooh.
I understand your great job, but it would make the course more worthy. Hence, hear, read, speak. You should also include some tests to challenge our understanding.
Oh, that's also very good.
Okay.
We have
so
started
we
talking
actually,
about that as
it's actually interesting enough. We actually in the development of writing summary texts for each lesson, and also audio that we'll have for the lessons that we've had in the past.
That's true.
So that's a work in progress at the moment. So we are attending to that.
Thank you for the recommendation. Any kind of recommendations, we always want to better the experience of the end user, and if that will help, then we'll see what we can do about it for sure.
Okay. The next question here, Chris, is a little bit off topic.
Okay, that's all right. I just want some feedback. I think is good.
Okay, all right. Bit. So Arturo from Miami. Hi, Arturo. He asks, why my ego doesn't want to make connection with other friends and with the society, and how can I overcome that?
Okay, so let's assume that you have a society, or you want to enter a society, or we can actually say in general any kind of society that I don't want to enter. Why don't I want to enter it? I don't want to enter it because I don't see the benefit in it. That's what we've been talking about this whole time. And we're gonna get we're gonna get in more into how the environment influences me and in what ways, which is why I'm a little bit skeptical to take questions that are preceding the text that we're gonna be reading. But I forgot, what did he ask again?
Question is why my ego doesn't want to make a connection with other friends, and with the society. So and how can I overcome that?
Right. Well, you won't be able to overcome it. This is kind of the whole topic of the lesson, is the influence of the environment. It's not that I have the forces within myself to do any kind of overcoming, any kind of, if I have resistance to something, where am I going to get the forces to say, no, this is worthwhile for me to do, right? That's kind of the question. Yep. Well, that's what it means to put yourself in a good environment. And you can even enter environment, meaning I could be listening to Kabbalah lessons all day, but if internally I don't want that, I'm not aiming to be above that, meaning, okay, I'm in my room, I'm listening, I hear the lessons, I'm reading books, but I guess you could say it if my heart isn't in it, meaning I don't want to identify with these states, I don't want to yearn for these states, long for these states that are these exalted goals that Kabbalah talks about, meaning love your neighbor as yourself. If I don't want that, which of course I don't, I have to at least want that. It's called the prayer before the prayer. And it means I don't have anything in me at all. I don't have any inclination of good, of spirituality in me at all. All I know is that this point in the heart awakened in me, and it says, it is worthwhile for your ego to engage in spirituality. That's where you start from. It's totally normal. Every prayer that you have, every inclination to do something good in society will come from the ego, and it won't come from some will to bestow that you all of a sudden imagined. And so the whole point of entering an environment comes from the fact that you need external forces in order to move. So being in a good environment means valuing that environment and wanting to be influenced by their values.
Chris, let me clarify the question.
Great.
Okay. He asked how much of the upper force is involved in how we experience pleasure and pain.
Well, this is the fifth lesson, and I see that it's still difficult to grasp the fact that there is only one force in reality. There's one force in reality, and it's one attitude, and it's one direction. It's complete bestowal. The only reason we know that is because when Kabbalists attain the similarity in that quality of the 125 degrees, even from the first degree, you already know that the Creator is a force that bestows. You enter a world where you see the action of the Creator. You see the results of the Creator. You see his hand, and you see that he moves the world in complete bestowal, meaning that he's good that does good. That's not it's not an opinion. This is just the observation of this law of bestowal. This is what it does.
Okay. We have also Lynn from the United States has asked, is the upper controlling force the Creator or an aspect of the Creator?
Right, so we've talked about before how there's Atzmuto, which is his essence, which is where the thought of creation stems from, which is something that we will attain once the entire world is in the state of wanting to come to love your neighbor as yourself, and actually gets through all of those states, 125 together. Then there's something that it's not written about because that just simply hasn't happened yet. And what was the question again?
Is the upper controlling force the Creator or an aspect of the Creator?
Right. So there's Atzmuto, and then there's what we discover in our world. Every kind of object that exists, every kind of relation, every kind of instance that happens, we say that that's the Creator. Why do we say that it's the Creator? It's because there's one constant bestowing force, and then there's these pieces that work in a network together and influence each other in order to build something. So that's the whole point, is that this is the matter, the principle here, is that we don't understand how that force behaves with us. We don't understand that it's only good, and if we were to enter that force and be similar to it, we would do all the same actions, meaning we would rule the world the exact same way because we agree with it. And it's not that that's not Atzmutot, this is the creation. He created this creature that reacts to his influence. And this reaction that's taking place in our world is simply the movement in states, the changing of states, meaning in spirituality there's no time and there's no space, there's simply a changing of states. And in our world, we see that manifested as physical things that occur in our world, meaning I can move my book to here and move it back to here, but if there's no time and space in spirituality, it's just a state that the will to receive underwent as a result to the influence of the upper light, which is also the Creator, but the identification of this system and how everything works and how everything is played, how we're played on from above, that we also call the Creator. But it's just simply one influence, one constant state of directing its creature. But we won't name it. We won't talk about it till we actually understand and see that is this one force.
Yeah, and as we delve deeper into the books, we get to understand that the Creator is a force of bestowal, but there's aspects of that force of bestowal. There's like the 10 Sfirot, Keter, Chokhmah, Bina, Zerampin, and Malchut, which is all attributes of the Creator. And we'll get to understand, though, what the nature of those attributes are. That will become as we study further. But as for this moment, we talk about it as a force of bestowal, of pure giving, of pure bestowal. Okay, Omid from Tehran has asked, if the Creator does all things, why do we suffer for his decisions?
It's said that there's suffering above millions of times more than there's suffering below, meaning that the creator hasn't that the creature hasn't yet developed to see that the Creator isn't giving, isn't bestowing evil, isn't giving the blows, is not doing it out of bad. It doesn't want the creature to suffer. So meaning that the Creator is suffering from his creature, that it hasn't developed to reach this full state of perfection yet. And everything all of the Creator's behavior towards us is 100% only in order to do good to us. And until we can attain his hand, his providence, until we see that that's really his attitude, we're always going to blame it. We're always going to say that there actually is another force besides the Creator. We'll always think if Johnny punches me or something on the side, I'm going to say, ow, Johnny, instantly. I'm not going to think of the Creator. I'm going to think there's this body, this protein body outside of me that has some kind of evil inclination towards me, and I'm going to blame him and not the Creator. And the same with my boss at work and the wife at home and all these things. It's this whole reality is built for us to bridge the gap between what I see as none else besides him, and meaning that there's another force in reality, not him, bridging the gap between seeing that he also acts in this way or in this way, in this form, meaning he's completely infinite and everything is actually one.
Okay. There's some further questions there, Chris. I don't know how.
Maybe let's just change the tone a little bit, relax it, and find a different thing. We can go to the clip. Hezi, I think it's called Illusia. So what do we get from that? We kind of get the feeling that it doesn't matter what I do, I'm still under the control. And I don't understand how it works with me. I didn't understand that, this guy came to the door and he took that and made me do that. But when you get to attainment, when you reach through love of others, right? Through building this desire and wanting to actually implement free choice from the group, when I discover this attitude of love your neighbor as yourself, meaning I ask for the quality of bestowal, meaning this connection between us, this intensity of desire that's between us that wants to feel that that we want to bestow between us. We want to feel that there's love between us. If we get that quality of bestowal from that connection, then we see it's like putting on glasses to the rest of the world, and we see 1 degree less, meaning there's 1 layer of restriction removed, and I see the Creator's providence from that action that I made in the group, meaning to reach love of others. And so again, to reiterate, we don't want to go out into the world, and we're not looking to the world to blame or to change some government agency to do something better for our world, or, kind of, what do they call them? I forgot how they call it. Anyway, people who want to go out and change the world and give a bunch of money, we see what happens when you donate.
90%.
Yeah. When you donate millions of dollars to Africa, say, for example, we see that here happening. Where do those millions of dollars go? Exactly. So it doesn't mean you can't really cure anything with external remedies such as money or laws or anything like that. So just to reiterate that really first of all, that the only free choice to do any of that, to make any of the changes there, happen from the environment, and we will open that up another layer right now, and that's going to be the only thing that saves us. in the end. Do you want to take a question? Wait a second. Let's finish the reading.
Okay.
Let's finish the reading, and then we'll take a question.
Okay. I've got a good question here from Hartwig that sums it up. But let's do a bit more reading, and then we can delve into this a little bit further, friends, and we can take a couple of questions thereafter, yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. A person is operated according to the desire to receive and his genetic build-up. Moreover, this is Balasam. Okay. Is this the same location?
No, this is a different reading actually.
Okay.
This one is just a little bit longer down somewhere in the article. It's just picking it up. We're still reading from the freedom, but it's just in a different section, starting with moreover.
Right. Okay. Moreover, even determining the type of pleasure and benefit are entirely out of one's own free choice, but follow the will of others as they want and not he. For example, I sit, I dress, I speak, I eat, I do all these not because I want to sit that way or talk that way or dress that way or eat that way, but because others want me to sit, dress, talk and eat that way. It all follows the desire and fancy of society, not my own free will.
So now we're expanding a little bit more, meaning how exactly does the environment influence me? And I can see that through all of my behaviors, through everything that I do, I want to be accepted by society, meaning that society is important to me, and I want to follow their rules, basically. You can talk about this and write 1,000 pages about how, I'm not going to wear these shoes because, I feel this way, and there's these kind of people that influence me to think that, and then I want to be accepted in those people's eyes. And there's also the example of, if I could go to work in my pajamas, I definitely would, right? It's all much more comfortable to go to work in pajamas. Oh, I think that's a clip, actually, after this. But I can't because it's not accepted by society. So that's what we're talking about here, just to kind of point you in that direction, that now Bala Salam is talking about how exactly to just such a fine point, I'm completely obligated by society and not my own, and not myself.
Okay. Furthermore, in most cases, I do all these against my will. For I would be a lot more comfortable behaving simply without any burden.
Meaning with the pajamas, I'd be much more comfortable going in my pajamas, meaning I'll go to work in my dress clothes. I'm doing that against my will.
Okay. I've got your Mickey Mouse pajamas. So.
Thanks, man.
When am I going to work in this?
My Transformers underwear.
But I am chained with iron shackles in all my movements to the fancies and manners of others, which make up the society. So you tell me, where is my freedom of will? On the other hand, if we assume that the will has no freedom, then we are all like machines, operating and creating through external forces which force them to act this way.
I believe this is some of the questions you guys might have started kind of asking in this direction. So I wanted to read this. I wanted you to hear it from the sources first before I dirtied it with my regurgitation.
Okay. To act this way. This means that we are all incarcerated in the prison of providence, which, using these two chains, pleasure and pain, pushes and pulls us to its will, or where it sees fit. It turns out that there's no such thing as selfishness in the world, since no one here is free or stands on his own 2 feet.
Wait a second. Are you trying to tell me that Hillary Clinton, she deserves to be forgiven for whatever she's done, or Hitler, or who, everybody, doesn't matter. This idea that there's no such thing as selfishness, once you start really opening this paradigm of where nobody has free choice, including me, you are behaving towards the world in a completely different manner. How could you all of a sudden start blaming someone that parked in your parking spot and be mad at them? What are you actually mad at? You're mad at this instance. It's kind of like, your computer stops working and you're like, ugh, come on you, and you're like yelling at this inanimate thing. Similarly, we are complaining towards something that it just shows you how broken our vision is, meaning that this is the creator who's showing me this movie. This person has no freedom of choice. I'm like involved with it. I feel pain from it. I feel pleasure from it. I have all kind of emotions towards it. So I'm like included in this movie that's like a roller coaster, and I'm getting hurt, and there's other people in the world, but none of them have free choice. All of a sudden I'm like this point that's sitting on the side that just doesn't have free choice. It sees that it's being operated completely. I can move my hands however I want to do. So can the other person, and they can harm me, and they can do bad things in the world, and they can do good things, and they can act however they want to act, seemingly. But when you break it down, if you look at that person's situation, where they came from, their upbringing, their education, their genes, all of those play they are the factors in the person's software that causes them to behave whichever way that they're behaving. Meaning they also have this plate of pleasure and pain, and they're also choosing. And they didn't choose the plate. Who said? Did you choose to be born? Did someone ask you if you wanted to be born? Did they ask you where you wanted to be born?
No.
Did they ask you what parents to have?
No.
Did they ask you what school to go to?
No.
What friends to have?
No.
Well, then I don't know. I'm confused then, because I was just thinking that you were just some jerk, because that's Johnny the jerk or whatever, right? Listen, guys, these are the kind of discernments that we're going to start feeling, and because why do they become clear? Because you see them on yourself. You see, you want to blame someone else, but then this inner point inside of you realizes that maybe they actually didn't act that way, because I'm starting to uncover my attitude towards the outside world, and I'm starting to see that it's broken and not correct, and it's showing me that I'm so confused that I'm blaming this thing that's actually me. This is part of my body. This is part of my soul, and I'm giving it its own freedom of choice. I'm saying that it has freedom of will, but it doesn't, since our only freedom of will is to choose an environment. So I said, where did you go to school? Your family, your friends, and everything. Why did I ask those questions? Because those are the factors that build a person, that give them the values, that give them the menu item in front of them, tells them what's more pleasurable, what's more painful. They provide to them the things that they would enjoy or that they would not enjoy from. And so when we're choosing a spiritual environment, here is kind of the climax of the lesson. Why do we want to choose a spiritual environment? Why does Bala Salam write articles and articles and articles, and Rabash write articles and articles and articles on the importance of the environment? Because it's our only salvation. The environment produces me with values that don't exist in this world. You will not find anywhere where someone wants to be similar to the Creator, and it must be mutually done. Why does it have to be mutual? I can't just go to someone at work and try to work with him with my inner discernments and see that he's like being very mean, but I see that he has no free choice, so I want to forgive him, I want to connect with him. You're not going to get any results from that, because he is not giving you the good environment. He's not bestowing to you good values. So if you come to a group of Kabbalists, for instance, here we don't slander and we don't talk gossip here. It's kind of this very strict rule. It's not like, you're strict and you're going to have a punishment or something, but because you see the damage that it causes. You see the damage if you talk bad about somebody else to another person, that it causes that person not to be able to, it causes them to, see that flaw in that person, and you're giving them an extra flaw that they have to overcome. Because I need their influence. I need their values bestowed upon me. And I will not receive their values if I see them lower, if I see them as not important, if I see them as a fake, or any kind of things like, any kind of similar qualities like that. I won't be influenced by them. And everyone who studies Kabbalah, if you're in a Kabbalistic group, if you're studying Kabbalah together, then all of your discernments come from your relation to the group, relation to this environment. Meaning they're talking about something important, they're talking about bestowal, and they're talking about subjugating yourself, and they're talking about working, in a new reality where you're trying to care more about someone else than yourself, and that's completely against your nature. Thus, you need an outside force to provide you with something to do, with an action to make, or a move to make, that's against your nature. Just like we read here, he says, I'm even doing it against my will. I'm even going to work wearing these clothes. Why? Because the society, it obligates me to do such a thing. So here I want the society to obligate me to be closer to the quality of bestowal, to want the quality of bestowal, to bestow there, to act there as a representative of the Creator, to give them this importance. And that's why we need to be in a good environment all the time. Otherwise, I will hear values from other things, from other people, from TV channels, from the internet, from something. I'll be influenced by those environments, and I will feel that those things are more important. And that means I would stop engaging in spirituality. It means I stop growing. Once I'm disconnected from the thought of how important it is to be influenced by an environment, I'm done growing. I'm not growing there anymore. Meaning my contact with the Creator, my understanding of His providence on me, happens only under the influence of the environment and not anywhere else.
Okay. So there's Chris, there's some questions.
Hezi, can you open the side door maybe? I'm starting to sweat. I think we ran out of air in here. Are you okay?
I'm okay. I think we can do that.
I need some O2. Yeah, you feel it?
Okay. So I'll read this, Chris, and there's some other questions that are related to what you're saying.
Okay.
And really good ones.
Good.
Okay. I'm not the owner of the act, and I'm not the performer because I want to perform, but I am performed upon in a compulsory manner and without my awareness. Thus, reward and punishment become extinct. And it is quite odd, not only for the Orthodox who believe in His providence and can rely on Him and trust that He aims only for the best in this conduct.
He's talking about the Orthodox, because Bala Sulam, we also need to mention here, Bala Sulam was in a society, heavy Orthodox Jew in Poland, and he couldn't seem out of the ordinary when he wanted to disseminate Kabbalah so bad. He wanted the people to know, but he had to have an approach that was suitable for his readers. So he oftentimes mentions things about the Orthodox Jews and how they behave, because he's trying to appeal to that demographic.
Okay, it is even stranger for those who believe in nature, since according to the above, we are all incarcerated by the chains of blind nature, with no awareness or accountability. And we, the chosen species, with reason and knowledge, have become a toy in the hands of the blind nature, which leads us astray, and who knows where. Bala Sulam Writings, The Freedom. Kabbalah for the Student, which is this book here. Okay, page 376.
We should have said that before. We should have mentioned that before, but it's okay. That's what's her name?
Yeah,
Naomi
Ronald actually sent a link to that.
All right, no, thanks.
Okay, there's some questions here, Chris, that are really good.
Definitely, let's do it. We've got 30. Wait, so we've got about 30 minutes, and we have one more reading left. So yeah, we're good. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Mary from South Korea asks, says, wonderful topic today. Thank you. Very nice to have you with us, Mary. Okay, and she says, so when the ego clashes with the means of the society, what way shall I take? We see many people nowadays that struggle between these two, and it's quite scary.
This is confusing. It's hard to work in two different worlds.
Correct.
Basically, here you're working with people who see reality the same way that you want to see reality, or you share a common understanding of what's going on in reality. A little bit more, a little bit more than the rest of humanity. And why? There's just this a little bit of development in humanity, and it started at that layer. And that layer, whoever is willing to hear it and whoever's not willing to hear it, there's a line between them. Now the line gets a little bit blurred to some people who are a little bit more they're a little bit more open to the idea, meaning that they this is the funny thing, is that their ego is willing to turn an ear to the idea that it will need to subjugate itself a little bit more in order to enjoy more. Meaning that there's enough suffering in this world, and the ego has undergone many generations of suffering on itself, and meaning development, that it's willing to even hear about the thing that's opposite to it. And we can't force it anywhere else. We can't try to convince a person that this is the way that they need to live, this is the attitude that they need to have to life. It's impossible. Everyone, once you start studying Kabbalah, I understand, everyone has their parents and their close friends around them, and you have no choice. It's like you try to say everything to them, you try to give them everything, and and you're just a beginner, and you just kind of ruin it for everyone. You're like, all your friends think you're a little bit crazy, your family thinks you're a little bit crazy, and it's just because you were so excited you didn't even know what to do with yourself, because you've revealed such. It's like an abundance, like a whole new reality that you want to pass on, and you can't. And so when you're talking about things that happen in the outside world, and it's difficult to cope with them, you just need to behave the way that they want you to behave, the way that they expect you to behave. If you need to go to a doctor, then you go to a doctor. You don't stay at home and think that I'm going to be healed by the upper light because I'm thinking about the group, for instance. All kind of confusions like that. We live in two worlds. This world that demands us to behave certain ways, and then when we enter a group where we start trying to develop Adam, the relationship between us, and it can only happen there. So if you have problems at the home, and she doesn't study or he doesn't study, or with the boss or something like that, then it just requires you to behave and to solve the problems in the way that you would need to solve them there.
Okay. Also, just want to add something further to what Mary's asked here, is that we find people that come to the wisdom of Kabbalah, they're asking questions about existence. What is the meaning of life? Where have I come from? Where am I going to? Because something feels like it's missing. Okay, that's not everybody in humanity, that's for sure, we know that. It's actually relatively a small percentage, the Kabbalists say, okay, relative to the mass of 8 billion people on this planet. But as you get into the path and you study, you find there's challenges, as Chris said, because you work in a particular environment that's talking about bestowal, that's working with bestowal, and also you're going into the outside world with your work, friends, etc., and that's purely 100% egoistic. Okay, now it's a very important part of the work that we live in both worlds at the same time, and that's the goal.
Meaning not to run away.
Not to run away. Exactly.
I don't want a job. I don't want this.
Exactly. We're not a monastery here. Everyone here at Bnei Baruch here in Israel, and all the friends around the world, everyone has a job, has a career, has families. Nothing changes.
Goes and visits the family on Shabbat, for a meal.
Or has friends who don't study Kabbalah. There's no thing saying, you got to do this, you got to do that. No. It's just something extra that you add to your life to help enrich yourself, to give you some answers to some deep questions.
Right.
Okay, so there's no extremism, or there's no people telling you this is right and that's wrong. No, it's about understanding yourself, understanding the laws of nature, becoming more connected to what's going on around you, understanding what's happening with you in your life, the forces that are happening externally, etc. And also developing something within yourself, inner, to develop and become a more enriched person. Ultimately, with the goal is to become closer to the upper force. Okay, and that's over time. It takes time of study, internal work, connection with friends, etc. So that's there's no separation with us from external society in any way. But as you advance in the studies, and we've learned, this is further down the track. You learn to feel the ego from the outside, and you bring it into your internal work, in your environment, and you work with it in different ways in order to achieve the goal of becoming closer to the upper force. It's complicated, it's involved, it takes time, but you'll learn this as it goes, and it's very enriching. It's a very enriching experience because you go through a lot of great internal transformations where you get to know more about yourself, you get to more about how to get closer to the force that's created all of us, and deal more easily, in a sense, with things that work.
Handle life. You can
handle life a
yep,
little bit easier, understanding, okay, there's ego out there, but where it comes from, why it's operating that way, and not to react in it in extreme ways to get really upset with it, but to understand it better, so that you become you get to understand life better.
You become a professional. You're your own scientist. It's just like going to school, and
exactly.
The longer you're in it, the more you understand.
Exactly. So the point that we went on, that I wanted to make also, and I think Chris has put over as well, it's a very practical wisdomness. It applies to day-to-day life. It provides to living, your connections with everyone, everything around you, from the still, vegetative, animate, and the human level of existence. So it's very enriching.
It's at first there's a huge disconnect between what's happening on the outside world and Kabbalah, because in the group, because you also say, okay, so but it's also the creator out there that's giving me all these problems at work and showing me these big egos of the people there, but I don't understand how to work with it. Like, how am I supposed to receive that? How am I supposed to understand the fact that I just got fired is good for me in Kabbalah, like in my study? I don't have a job now. I have to make money, I have to provide for my family, I have, plenty of things to do, and all of a sudden the Creator gives me something that makes my life much more difficult. The time being, we don't understand it, but the only remedy that we have is to increase our connection between us, and you take these principles, take these the guidance from the Kabbalists of what they had the same exact life. The Kabbalists also had very difficult lives, as you'll read about later. And each person has exactly what he needs in order to develop the most effectively on the spiritual path. And if you disregard what's happening on the outside and want to ignore it and make it pass away, and you don't know the Creator and everything, then you're pushing away the Creator. You're pushing away still His influence on you. This is how he wants you to feel these certain things in order to have a certain relation to Him. And why did Johnny say that thing in the beginning about, to the madam from South Korea? Because for new students, whenever we first start studying, you get very excited, and it's like, forget it. I'm not going to work. I can do this all day. I don't need any family. I don't need any friends. You cut yourself off. You're like, I want to do this forever. That's kind of initial. This is it's just one of the first emotions that you kind of have, and that'll go away as well. He was just warning, don't do anything irrational. Everyone here has the same exact life that a normal person would have, and they try to, and they don't want to be different, because in the end, that's actually hurting the dissemination of wisdom of Kabbalah by putting this bad taste in a person's mouth that, oh, they're a cult, or they're this, or they're that. And so you just need to be as normal as you can on the outside. If something is preventing you from acting normal, then you need to check it and correct it.
Yeah, no, and further to that also, it's very natural in that people have different levels of desires when they start learning the wisdom of Kabbalah, and that's also okay. A person goes at their own pace. They study how they feel most suitable for themselves, and there's no right or wrong, because we're talking about nature and how we feel. And that's what I love the wisdom of Kabbalah, because when I was younger I was told you got to do this or you got to do that. If you don't do it, you're not right according to what society says. And I come here and it says, oh, your soul will be your teacher. No, individual. You come and you learn from within, and you go at your own pace, and you learn about yourself, and it's a process that you evolve over time. So it's, there's ups and downs with any process, but you will see
we
it's
do
really
have
enjoyable.
a teacher. We do have a teacher, and we have to have a teacher because we're not going to understand how to read these texts, and we don't have any interpretation of the things that the Bala Salam or Rabash were talking about. So we have to have a teacher for him to explain us and lead us on this path. But everything that Dr. Rav Lightman says, we just take that and work it on ourselves. Take his advice and see if this brings me closer to the spiritual work.
Okay, so Kay from Holland has asked a question, Chris.
Hezi, are we going to 10:30? 10:30, okay. Huh? Thanks, man.
Kay from Holland says, when the environment confronts me with my egoism, I realize my egoistic intention. What can I do at that moment?
It's not your job to do anything physically. Saying if I'm presented with a certain situation, how do I need to act? Meaning on the outside. If someone wants to take my jewelry or my phone or my wallet or whatever, how am I going to react? For instance, just reacting normally, just try not to cause harm. We're just trying not to cause harm to the system. Internally, however, we just want to see that this is the creator. I don't know how to relate to it. All I want to see is that this is none else besides him acting, and I just don't want to disconnect from the fact that it's him making the action. Later on, if you do this work, then and you don't forget though. Don't forget that that you only have a connection with the creator through the environment. So that means that you have to already be thinking about others, meaning that I want this creator, I want to be in contact with the creator, but the creators only exist within the connection between us. And if I want to have this relation, this attitude towards the creator on the outside world, then I also still need to internally be connected to the place that brings me the revelation of the creator, meaning this attitude of that we have between us, where we want to find love of friends, from love of friends to love of the creator. And that is the work, really. You'll see how that expands into infinity, and you can put everything in every instance in the world, as long as you have this tool that you take with you, that you feel the internality of the connection between you, then your connection with the creator is to that extent. That's confusing, and it doesn't make sense, and it won't make sense until you get into the real world. You don't know where's the creator? I don't know where he is. I want to relate to him. You forget that it's one force that's bestowing. He wants you to, you go through the whole process. He wants you to come to a group. He wants you to reveal him. And so then you find your salvation there internally with everyone else that wants to have this correct relation to the world and to the creator, which is the only reason why he gave me this thing in the first place. Then you're grateful that he gave it to you because you see that it brought you closer to him. So, of course, you're not going to be able to remember all these steps, and it's a process and all these different things, which is why studying has to be done in the influence and environment that will give you these values, will give you these the persistence to stay in touch with all of the connections between us throughout the day. But it's just simply applying these rules that we're learning.
Just to further, Chris. Kay, what we learn in Kabbalah is that that's our nature. That's our nature that we're born with. That's our material, is the desire to receive, and it's egoistic. That's ego. And Kabbalah is not about suppressing the ego. It's not like Buddhism where you go sit in a monastery and it's suppressing the ego. It's talking about how to use your ego, okay, for an alternative purpose in order to become closer to something called the upper force, the creator. So when you realize that you have egoistic intention, and we all do, that's okay. And it's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to be upset about. We're all acting with our egos. But the great thing about this wisdom is it's teaching you how to work with your ego, how to direct it in another fashion, which we'll learn more about as the weeks go on. But just realize that, because we've seen the ego grow stronger and stronger. as we can see around the world in different, it's coming up in different ways, with wars, with conflicts in the workplace, etc., etc. This is a process of, it's an evolving world that we're living in today, and Kabbalah works when you understand the nature of man, why is that the case, and it's all there in a nutshell, so we get a revelation of the upper force through all of humanity. That's the goal of creation, for the Creator to be revealed within all His creatures, in the heart, okay, in the feeling, okay. So, and that will be studied how we do that. There's a lot of processes involved. We'll study that as we go on. Okay, maybe you want to talk further. You have some other stuff, Chris?
I want to read.
Or two other questions.
I want to read.
All right. Okay. So I'll carry on the reading here.
Yeah, sorry, it's the environment as a factor.
Okay. So if we don't get through all the readings, I think Reinhard sent the link of this article, and you can see it on the internet. So we encourage you to read this again during the week.
And read it all the time, as much as you can.
Yeah.
But especially to hammer it. The first time you're hearing the information, the first time you're hearing the material, it's good to go over it more and more and kind of chew it, and you'll find different clarifications along the way. Just like anything else.
Okay. There's some very nice questions here.
We have to finish this reading first.
Okay, the environment is a factor. This protection means that we can always supplement in the matter of choosing our environment, which are the friends, books, teachers, and so on. It is like a person who inherited a few stalks of wheat from his father. From this small amount, he can grow dozens of stalks through his choice of the environment for his source, which is fertile soil with all the necessary minerals and raw materials that nourish the wheat abundantly. There's also the matter of the work of improving the environmental conditions to fit the needs of the plant and the growth. For the wise will do well to choose the best conditions and will find blessing. And the fool will take from whatever comes before him and will thus turn the sowing to a curse rather than to a blessing. Thus, all its praise and spirit depends on the choice of the environment in which to sow the wheat. But once it has been sown in the selected location, the wheat's absolute shape is determined according to the measure that the environment is capable of providing. So is the case with our topic. For it is true that the desire has no freedom. Rather, it is operated by the above four factors, and one is compelled to think and examine, as they suggest, denied of any strength to criticize or change, as the wheat has been sown in its environment. However, there is a freedom of the will to initially choose such an environment, such books, and such guides that impart to him good concepts. If one does not do that, but is willing to enter any environment that appears to him and read any book that falls into his hands, he is bound to fall into a bad environment or waste his time on worthless books which are abundant and easy to come by. In consequence, he will be forced into foul concepts that make him sin and condemn. He will certainly be punished, not because of his evil thoughts or deeds in which he has no choice, but because he did not choose to be in a good environment. For in that there's definitely a choice.
Meaning, this is the first choice that we have. I can't be blamed for any of the things that that I've done.
It's the only choice.
It's the yeah. It's my only choice is to ask for a different menu. Basically, I'm not choosing what's on the menu. I'm not choosing. Well, if I start getting into that example, it's going to be confusing. Basically, my only choice is to see the values that this society has and to want to be influenced by it. And I think that's a little bit clear now, a little bit more clear, and I hope it is. So to make it a little bit clear before we go on a little bit, Hezi, just the slide. This little desire needs to be nourished with certain kinds of nutrients. If it gets the right nutrients, we enter spirituality. If not, it doesn't. So we move over here. This is the soil. I put the seed into the soil, correct? Now, if I put it in bad soil, which is this black soil here, if I put it in the bad soil, it's going to grow this dead, weird-looking tree. I used red because it looks unhealthy. And if I put it in the correct soil, meaning the good environment, then my tree has the nice sun that it needs. It has the nice, good, clean air, and everything's green here. That's just a kind of a child's explanation of what happens when you put yourself in the correct environment. I have something that can grow into many stalks of wheat and can really be fertile and can really flourish. But if I am confusing myself with other environments and getting influences of other environments on me, and not necessarily acquiring the values of a spiritual society, meaning that they want to reveal the Creator, then I will simply either die off the path, I will be uninterested, I'll find other things too that I think are great, and my time where I had my point in the heart awakened may be taken away from me. That always needs to be kind of a little bit this fear underneath. Kind of, it should be there lingering. We've seen many times just friends who just life brings them extreme difficulties, and if you don't have your strong roots in the society where you can receive those influences in time of despair and difficult times, then you can really be confused and you'll be taken off. So always just constantly be concerned where your thoughts are.
Okay. Therefore, he who strives to continually choose a better environment is worthy of praise and reward. But here too, it is not because of his good thoughts and deeds, okay, which come to him without his choice, but because of his efforts to acquire a good environment, which brings him these good thoughts and deeds. It is as Rabbi Yoshua ben Paracha said, make for yourself a Rav. Now you can understand the words of Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, Avot 86, who replied to a person who offered him to live in his town, and he would give him thousands of gold coins for it. Even if you give me...
Sorry, here's a respected Kabbalist who, he's in this town where he has his students there, and that's where he's working. This is his soil. He's been working here. So now we have someone that's coming from the outside and saying, great Rabbi, we want you to come to our town. We'll give you thousands of gold coins, as much as you want. Just come here. What are you with these lowly people? And what does he say?
Okay. Casey, someone wrote sound just disappeared. The sound is okay?
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, okay, no problem. Sorry, everybody. Okay.
Who replied to a person?
Even if you give me all the gold and silver and jewels in the world, I will live only in a place of Torah.
Meaning where he can receive the influence of the environment.
These words seem too sublime for a simple mind to grasp. But how could he relinquish thousands of gold coins for such a small thing as living in a place where there are no disciples of Torah.
Meaning he had students, but they were considered very beginner.
Okay.
Much smaller in compared to him.
Okay. These words seem too sublime for a simple mind to grasp. For how can he relinquish thousands of gold coins for such a small thing as living in a place where there are no disciples of Torah, while he himself was a great sage who needed to learn from no one, indeed a mystery. But as we have seen, it is a simple thing and should be observed by each and every one of us. For although everyone has his own source, the forces are revealed openly only through the environment one is in. This is similar to the wheat sown in the ground, whose forces become apparent only through its environment, which is the soil, the rain, and the light of the sun. Thus, Rabbi Yossi ben Kizma correctly assumed that if he were to leave the good environment he had chosen and fall into a harmful environment in a city where there is no Torah, no study of the wisdom of Kabbalah, not only would his former concepts be compromised, but all the other forces hidden in his source,
meaning the bedrock or the soil,
which he had not revealed in action, would remain concealed. This is because they would not be subject to the right environment that would be able to activate them.
Meaning, such a great Kabbalist like Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, even he is subject to bad influence of the environment, he would lose his degree as well if he loses his environment that he's connected to.
And as we have clarified above, only in the matter of the choice of the environment is man's reign over himself measured. And for this he should receive either reward or punishment. Therefore one must not wonder at a sage such as Rabbi Yossi ben Kizma for choosing the good and declining the bad, for not being tempted by materials and corporal things as he deduces there. When one dies, one does not take with him silver or gold or jewels, but only Torah, which is the wisdom of Kabbalah, and good deeds.
And our sages warned, make for yourself a Rav and buy for yourself a friend. And there is also the choice of books, as we have mentioned, for only in that is one rebuked or praised, in his choice of environment. But once he has chosen the environment, he is at its hands as clay in the hands of a potter. The freedom. That's special.
Terrific.
Can we get some
questions?
questions?
Yeah, get some questions.
It's okay, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Nila from Serbia says, hello, most of the time I feel confused. How can I dissolve this feeling? It's like feeling lost in this world, not knowing what to do exactly. How to know what to do?
Exactly. That's first of all, it's very healthy. It's very true. It's the feeling of despair, which is pretty much what's brought you to the wisdom of Kabbalah in the first place. Now, the wisdom of Kabbalah isn't going to get you a job. It's not going to tell you, it's not going to give you good money or a fortune, which you can already see that kind of usually brings a person and makes adhering to the values of the group of a Kabbalist more difficult and so yeah.
Yeah, I was very similar to you in your feelings, Nila, when I started studying the wisdom. I needed direction in life and I was looking for answers to some deep questions. All I can say is, it's the good thing here is there's no coercion in the spiritual, which means that a person does what they feel is right for themselves at the pace that they feel is right. So take things slow, do things how you feel, read the materials, be with us in the lessons, and slowly you'll develop along this path, and you'll see if it's right for you or not right for you. It's also your choice, which is open, of course. So what I can say, what has helped me personally, is helped me clarify a lot of inner deep questions that I had about life. Why many things in my life happened to me. Why I went through a lot of struggles in different aspects. And I could understand it further for the reason that basically it was there, so I would try and find the meaning of life through this path. That was my search, so to speak. And what you'll find, which is the most powerful things, is that you'll find answers to the questions from within yourself. And that's a process. So don't be tough on yourself. Give yourself time. Be soft. Be open. You'll meet some great people here. What my feeling is, some of the best people I've ever met in my entire life. Friends throughout the world are on this path, studying the wisdom of Kabbalah. People are very warm, open. People work with their hearts. So yeah,
That's supportive of the environment. When you see that everyone else is going through the same things that you're going through, no one knows how to do anything in life. This is the crisis in our world. No one knows how to behave, and no one knows. There's no right move to make, because really, it could just be taken away from you. All of your hard work, anything could happen, and that's the reins. Those are the controls that they have on us. That one little move can make our lives so uncomfortable and immediately put us in a state where we're just dying for some kind of salvation. So just Johnny said well, and really just don't be depressed, but really try to just see that everything will be clarified in time with work, and that's a guarantee if you do the work.
Okay, some other questions here. Stefu from Romania asks, if I see around me a world that is not being corrected, means that only I'm the one who is not corrected?
Yes. That's good. That's a good observation. Now you can make that into, you could really confuse yourself with that as well, and carry that around with you as your perception of the whole world. Like, oh, I'm not corrected. This is this. That's true, but you need to relate that to the environment. Really, you're only going to be revealing how dissimilar you are from the Creator, meaning reveal your broken connection. You will only reveal that in the group, because you'll see there that when you want to have a correct attitude towards the Creator or towards this reality, if you want to relate to it correctly, you realize that you can't. So that means that's this kind of mirror that shows you where you're broken. But of course, if you're unable to justify that this is some upper force that's creating this reality and managing everything, and He's doing it from good, if you don't feel that inside, which 100% you don't, that means that you are uncorrected. Yes.
Okay, and just to add to what Chris has said, is that this is a process, Stefu. So the process is to become closer to something else, something above our nature, which is the nature of bestowal, which is the upper force. So there's a process of correction that a person goes through, process of inner change. Now that takes time. So when you see everything on the outside world that you see a world that is not corrected, that means that you are not corrected. That's true, but that's the whole aim here, is to correct ourselves, okay, such that we see none else besides Him. Essentially, everything is perfect, and that's a process, and we'll talk about that in
and you'll see that, and you'll feel it.
Okay. Berta from El Salvador, Chris asks, the gifts of God are granted only on condition. Nothing is free, or is it?
There's pure abundance right now.
It's a very good question.
See? Don't you see the abundance? Don't you see that the world is completely perfect? That's His gift. You could also say that His gift is giving us this concealment that we don't see that, first of all, that we're born completely opposite to it. That's His gift. But we receive it on condition that we are doing it from our free choice. That's the condition, which is what we're talking about today. He wants us to be free. We need to be independent. For us to truly for us to truly relate to him the way that he wants us to relate to him out of our own choice, that has to be done through this concealment where we don't see, where we see that there's other forces, that it's actually not good, it's a terrible world, and I'm not getting the things that I want, I'm not feeling the way that I should feel, I want to feel better. That's all me saying that there are other forces besides a force that does good. And so being so disconnected from that and so far from that is a gift, because it makes an open space for us to fill with the truth.
Okay, and also, I wasn't sure the direction of this question, Chris, totally, but the gifts of God are granted only on condition. Nothing is free, is it? One thing I want to add here: the Kabbalists throughout all the generations have wanted to give the wisdom of Kabbalah, okay, the wisdom of creation, okay, the wisdom of godliness, for a better word, to all of humanity, open at no cost, freely to be freely available. Now you see that in our approach, we have an internet site where you have all the materials on there. We have all our books in PDF. People can print them out and use them. As people advance, their stages are, of course, we're a self-funded organization. All the members around the world help to keep everything going. But that's down the track, and it's a process that we get involved in if we wish to, so to speak. But what is most important is that all the whole goal is that if I can understand your question correctly, is that every man or woman, person who wants to ask questions, the Creator wanted all of us to have this information, to have His wisdom in our hands, to get closer to Him, and there should be no price on that. It should be available to all of humanity, and we can see sort of that's the approach that we are taking. So the gifts of God are granted only on the condition. Only on the condition is that if we want it. That's the only condition. We have the desire. Okay, and also, of course, we talked about putting ourselves in a good environment. That's one of the other conditions.
That will give us the desire.
Correct.
That
and
gives
then
us the desire.
There's other factors as well.
There's other classes as well. We're going to learn about all the factors.
Well. Exactly. So yeah.
But that's good. That it's you don't get anything for free, meaning that yes, that you have to work for it, and not all of a sudden one day you're going to be. The Creator will give you some kind of awesome wake up that, oh, here He is. This is the Creator. Thanks, Creator. I needed that. How's the saying, Hezi? If you didn't labor and found, then don't believe. If you labored and found, then believe.
Okay.
Fast, because we're almost.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's only do it for like Hezi. What do you say? Can we do like 5 minutes? 5 more minutes? We are now. We are there. 5. As long as there's no pressure from other people trying to enter the stream, other time zones. Okay, let's go. Let's try and get as many as we can.
So Nila from Serbia has asked, so the work is contained from correcting oneself.
Yes, all of the work is correcting yourself, not correcting anyone else, not correcting anything outside of you. Meaning my attitude towards creation was one way, shattered, meaning that I don't see that the Creator does good and is good, that does good, meaning I can't see that because I don't have that same quality. That same quality, in order to reveal that, I have to purchase in the group and from there. And that is my correction. My correction is basically my perception of reality. Of course, that's a result, meaning I'd start seeing how the Creator reveals Himself and acts in our world. But that, of course, is a result of my correction, my inner attitude. Okay,
great. Chris, we have a question here from Facebook.
Okay.
Now, just to let everybody know, there's a button there at the bottom right-hand side of the page that you're all welcome to join our Facebook group, which is very active, and you can ask questions in there. You connect with friends who are currently studying the course, and we encourage you to participate there and to feel that environment, and as which will be the basis for developing further. A friend asked in the Facebook group, what does it mean transcending a new dimension on the wisdom of Kabbalah? Maybe we can relate it to the environment as well. Transcending a new dimension.
Well, let's say that if I can't see very well, and we'll just say that if I can't see, then putting on these glasses that help me see, it brings in it changes my focus point, right? That's all that glasses do. Meaning that my these little water pockets in my eyes, they already create a certain focus point. And if my vision is incorrect, that means my focus point is adjusted either a little bit forward or a little bit backward, and so I need glasses to change that focus point, right? So my focus point here is the group, meaning in order to see correctly the spiritual world and see the providence there and understand how the Creator operates everything, I need to tune into that and focus in on that. I can only get those glasses as I am reaching out to the friend to want to be like the Creator towards him. In this attempt of me wanting to bestow, even though I don't know what that is, and I need this new quality that will give me the glasses. That work in and of itself builds these lenses for you, and this is the kli, this is the vessel. This, you'll hear it in many different terms, but I have to go there and I have to invest there and I have to build it there, and then from there I can take it, and I have now acquired this connection between us, which reveals the Creator, which is my new focus point in reality.
Okay. Chris, there's 3 questions. We'll maybe be quick on them.
Do it.
Omid from Iran says, can we change the Creator's decisions?
Well, the problem is that the Creator influences us from below upwards, and the only action that we can have towards Him is this raising of a cry or a plea to want to be corrected. And He's constantly giving. So He wants to give it to us, but we're coming with holes in our bags. We're saying, "Give me." He's giving, but we can't grasp it because we don't have the right vessel. Yeah. So we can't change that. We can't say, "Change what you're giving." He just saying, bring something else, bring a barrel so you can have it. I'm trying to give it to you, and then this is the
I'll just add to that briefly. The Creator's nature is pure bestowal. Our nature is desire to receive, his ego. So his intention is always to be good and kind. The problem is that we in opposite form to his form. So we feel in his benevolence, his attitude towards us in a negative way because we are not of the same nature. So the process of Kabbalah is that's what's called Kabbalah in Hebrew means is a receipt, is how to receive, lekabel, how can I receive? So it's a method of how I can actually receive from the Creator in the right way, or the upper force in the right way, and work with this force in order to be a partner with Him in creation, ultimately. But that's the whole process of the wisdom, how to feel Him, how to sense Him, how to work together with Him. And we feel that everything is good that comes from Him. And this is the process. And again,
if I was corrected, then I wouldn't need to ask for anything, because I would see that He's actually providing everything that I need. It's just because I have this imaginary existence as this individual cell apart from from the body, that I feel that I'm not getting what I need. But if I would just connect myself to that body, then I would see that there's true abundance there.
Okay, two other ones, quick, Chris.
Sure.
Lynn from the USA has asked a really good question.
Okay.
I, in inverted commas, have never done anything, ? So I guess this goes back to the freedom of will. Until we come to this point of what is the freedom of will, what have I really done in life?
You will discover that yourself. You won't need to ask me. You can answer that yourself if you make these observations on yourself over the next, let's say, 2 weeks period, or the next week till we meet again. Just yourself and see, okay, so for this week I acted in these ways. And maybe you'll look back and maybe you'll think, actually the only reason I did that was because this, and this, which means that I didn't actually make a free choice, which means you can ask me that question in a week, and you'll already have the answer, because you'll see, of course, I behaved the same exact way until now in my life.
Good. That's a good one. Yep. Okay, Rana from South Africa. This is the last question. Maybe to add to Nemi, Why do we perceive suffering in this world when the Creator's nature is supposed to be all good? Can something bad extend from something that is good?
Right.
And we'll leave it as the last question.
That's a good last question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, we don't need to go into it again that, you know, I'm opposite from the Creator, so everything that I receive as bad. It's like, you know, we have this inverted relationship because we are 100% opposite. Like if I have this short, quickly here, Hezi, I'll do this. Say if this is my plane, my reality, this direction is me, and this direction is the Creator. How will I ever meet? Right? If this goes on for infinity, and this goes on for infinity, how can it be that I will ever be similar to Him? If we're going in complete opposite directions, I'm trying to take, you know, this to the most simplistic state that we can. You constantly want for yourself and give. Those things are complete opposite. That never changes. And as long as you can hold on to this principle, it'll be more and more clear to you, especially in the work, how opposite you are from it. And this is good. But you're asking this. You're asking, how can it be that I receive that something bad comes from something good? Well, because you're in the opposite direction. You're not in line with what He's giving. He's giving full abundance. All this red, this is pleasure. That's all pleasure. He's not giving bad. He's giving pleasure. But you're faced the wrong way. So what do you need to do in order to have that, to feel that as good? You need to change your direction. How do you change your direction? If this is for me that I want to receive for myself, that means I need to want to give like the Creator. I also need to give. Who am I going to give to? I'm not going to try to bestow to my boss. I'm not going to try to do this anywhere else, people on the street. I need to give. I need to want to give to people who also are bestowing me these values and giving to me these values so that I will also want this. Because I don't just make this turn for no reason. This turn doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen from within myself. It happens as a result of the group that influences me to make this turn, right? And I'm unable to do it. And I need the mutuality. I need to invest there so it's returned back towards me. And if we don't have a mutual goal, and meaning I'm not in a group of Kabbalists, I'm working out, trying to do this work with somebody else on the street, then I'm gonna receive blows instead of receiving these gifts that I need in order to make this turn to be similar to the Creator. Now, of course, if I change my direction just slightly, then that should give you a little illumination already that, first of all, there's this difference here. That gap is, meaning, wow, I'm 100% to receive. And I just changed a little bit. Of course, I'm not in the will to bestow, but I just noticed. That's what this is. I examined here. This was my change, okay? This is the change that I made, meaning I made some efforts in the group and I started seeing, revealing a little bit about how I'm not wanting to bestow. I'm a complete opposite to that. I'm still not in bestowal. This is bestowal right here. This is bestowal. I'm still not there because I'm up here, right? But this gap shows me now that I'm this much opposite. So I mean, there's a little bit of bestow, and this is me. This is the difference between them. That's showing me. That's giving me the feeling of oppositeness. So it shows me, okay, I actually can make a little move. I can actually make some changes. I'm not in the will to bestow completely yet, but this is the laboratory, constantly revealing to me how opposite I am, and if the group works correctly on me, if they influence me, then I will feel this gap. I will feel that gap as bad. Meaning I now have values that are to the detriment of the ego. Meaning I actually don't want to live inside the ego anymore. So this group work showing me that this this difference between good and, meaning my nature and the Creator's nature, showing that is a result of group work. And this gap, again, is the desire to change. And once this reaches this threshold, meaning I can't do it, I want so bad, I really, 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 really want the will to bestow, but I'm nothing because I'm completely opposite to it, this is when the light comes and makes this change. And that's why the group is so crucial, because you will not have this gap, you will not have this need for a change unless the influence of the environment is telling you you need to change and you should have this. That is pretty much it. And we are over for a lot, and I'm sorry that we did that. It's a very important topic. We had a lot of reading. We still have one more clip if you want to stay behind and watch it.
Yeah, I can see it.
There's, if you can, well, Hezi, can you play the clip in a second? You have it available, the one that about No Chance Alone. So we'll play the clip in a second. Guys, thanks again for staying with. I hope it was decent.
Very good.
It was great, and I
Great
think
to be for tonight.
I think we
Today.
entered a new little step in understanding what exactly we need to do here and what's our work. So Johnny, thanks again. Appreciate you, man. Thank you. Hezi, roll the clip.
We need to try and be under the influence of the Creator. How do I know what the influence of the Creator is? When I read in the books, am I under his influence? No, because it all goes through my egoistic filter, and I accept that which I understand, that which I feel, and what I want. Rather, only when it comes to me through my environment, then it is considered that I am under the bestowal, the influence of the Creator, because I dwell amongst my people, within a group, within an assembly of souls where the upper light is, where the Creator is. That's why there is no chance for a person alone reading a book, engaging in anything, disseminating in study or anything. Alone, nothing advances. It could be that it operates somewhat, but to the point, he's helping building something, but spiritually, no advancement. We need to so much understand that connection is the vessel for revelation.